Okay, so have you ever wished you could, like, breathe life into a building design?
It's like beyond just imagining it in 3D, right?
Exactly, and that's what's got me so fired up about algorithm-aided design.
AD, yeah. It's changing the entire game for building information modeling.
BIM, as some folks might know it. But we're talking next-level stuff here.
Totally. We're not just slapping on some fancy tech. This is like rewiring the DNA of architecture and engineering.
And lucky for us, we've got the perfect guide for this deep dive, structural engineer Nirbhay Chauhan.
His articles are packed with insights. It's actually kind of like he predicted this whole wave of AAD.
Really?
Yeah, he compares it to the early days of BIM, like seeing that same spark of revolution happening all over again.
So where do we even begin with something this massive?
Well, let's start with these names you hear everywhere. Dynamo and Grasshopper.
Okay, those do sound kind of intimidating, like straight out of a sci-fi movie, you know?
They do. But honestly, think of them as, visual programming tools.
Visual programming? See, now you're just using big words.
Okay, imagine this. You're connecting puzzle pieces, but instead of a picture, you're building a whole design.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it, but how do we go from puzzle pieces to, like, real buildings?
It's all about the math, but not the scary kind. AD takes those complex calculations and turns them into, well, stunning, buildable geometry.
So those intricate structures that seem impossible to design.
AD is often the secret sauce behind them.
So we're not just talking about aesthetics here. This is about fundamentally changing how we approach the design itself.
100%. It's about moving from static models to something way more powerful.
And that's where parametric modeling comes in.
You got it. Think of it this way. You draw a square, right? That's static. But what if you could define it by its properties, its relationships?
So instead of just being a square, it can adapt, change on the fly, while still being a square.
Exactly. And that's just the beginning. Take Chauhan's work, for example. He used Dynamo to design this incredible overhead water tank. Change one parameter, say the diameter, boom, the entire structure adjusts automatically.
Whoa, it's like the design is thinking for itself. But it's not just about these cool shapes, is it? There's a whole data side to this too, right?
You're right on the money. Dynamo and Grasshopper, they don't just create cool shapes, they manage the data behind those shapes.
Which is crucial for avoiding any, shall we say, structural hiccups.
Exactly. One tiny data point off, and the whole thing could fall apart. This helps maintain that delicate balance.
And that's where it gets really interesting, right? I mean, who wants to be that architect with a design flaw?
Talk about a nightmare. But that's what's so cool about Chauhan's work. He talks about real-time code compliance with AD.
Whoa, hold on. Back up a sec. We're talking about knowing instantly if your design meets building codes.
Exactly. No more waiting around for those reviews, no last-minute surprises. It's all about streamlined efficiency.
So it's like having a building inspector built right into your design software.
Pretty much. And this is just scratching the surface. Chauhan's even researching AAD with IFC.
IFC, for those of us who don't speak fluent BIM.
Right, sorry. It's basically a standard for sharing building info, making sure everyone's speaking the same language.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So what happens when you throw AD into that mix?
Things get really powerful. Think about it. You've got AD analyzing, adapting to different elements, parameters, AD making sure it all jives with industry standards.
All at the same time. My brain's going to explode. But okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room for a sec. A lot of folks hear algorithm and think, nope, that's for the tech geniuses, not for me.
Right, it can feel intimidating. But Chauhan actually addresses this head on. He believes learning these AD principles, even without writing code, can make anyone a better designer.
So you're saying it's like you don't need to be a master chef to appreciate a delicious meal.
Exactly. In fact, Chauhan uses a similar analogy. He compares designing an algorithm in AAD to perfecting a recipe.
So it's about understanding the relationships between all those ingredients, all those design choices, to get that perfect result.
That's the heart of it. It's not about replacing our creativity, it's about understanding it more deeply and using these tools to translate that understanding into something truly remarkable. And this is where things get really, really exciting.
AED is this whole other language for design. And even if we're not, fluent, just grasping the basics can completely change how we work.
It's true. It's like you've unlocked a secret level of design thinking. And that's really at the heart of what Chauhan's talking about. AAD isn't about humans versus machines. It's about collaboration, amplifying our creativity, not replacing it.
Okay, so let's bring this all home for our listeners. We started with this idea of algorithm-aided design, explored these kind of intimidating tools, Dynamo, Grasshopper, and saw how they're like changing the game for architects and engineers.
We went beyond just the wow factor of those complex shapes, right? We dug into the power of this thing called parametric modeling, talked about data in ways that would make your head spin, and even touched on real-time code compliance.
Which blew my mind, by the way.
Mine too. But it's this whole idea, right? AAD is like, here's the keys to the ultimate virtual design studio. Go wild. You can test any idea you can imagine, explore endless possibilities. And the best part is, you don't need to be a coding whiz to do it.
Chauhan's enthusiasm is contagious.
Totally. It really gets you thinking, you know?
It does. He's got me wondering, how could I use these principles even in my own work? And not just in architecture, but any creative field, really. It's about that dynamic, responsive approach.
There you go. Now you're thinking like a true AAD aficionado. The possibilities are truly endless.
And that's something worth pondering. And hey, maybe even a deep dive for another episode. But for now, keep those design sparks flying, keep exploring, and most importantly, never stop asking, what if?